Loretta Lynn became a legend, but the price of that legend was a life lived almost entirely in public. Maggie Smith spent decades being called a national treasure. She said she found the phrase faintly alarming. Michelle Trachtenberg, gone far too soon, was still becoming who she might have been. Leslie Jordan made the world laugh, and most people never stopped to ask what it cost him. Elvis Presley is perhaps the clearest example in American culture of what happens when a symbol swallows the person whole. Olivia Newton-John spent 40 years handling fame with a grace that looked effortless and almost certainly was not. There is a version of Jennifer Aniston the world agreed on a long time ago. She is the girl next door, the relatable one, the one whose hair you wanted, whose apartment you wanted, whose laugh felt like it belonged to someone you actually knew. That version was carefully constructed, partly by Hollywood, partly by tabloid repetition, and partly, it must be said, by Jennifer herself. But the cost of becoming a symbol is that the symbol eventually crowds out the person. And for Jennifer Aniston, the distance between the two has been one of the defining tensions of her public life. Her father was John Aniston, a working actor, a man of considerable discipline and stoic presence, who spent decades on Days of Our Lives with a quiet professional consistency that most actors never achieve. Her mother, Nancy Dow, was also an actress, though her career moved differently, with more volatility, more ambition, and more friction. Jennifer has spoken in interviews about her mother in ways that reveal a complicated dynamic, one she has not fully resolved in public, and one that shaped her relationship with attention, with approval, and with the particular cruelty of being looked at. Nancy Dow was reportedly strict and critical. Jennifer has acknowledged that her mother had opinions about her appearance, her weight, her choices. She has said, in so many words, that growing up in that house did not feel warm. When Nancy wrote a memoir in 1999, touching on their relationship, Jennifer publicly cut contact. That silence, maintained through enormous public pressure, says more than any interview. Her parents divorced when she was 9. She and her mother moved to New York. Her father remained present in her life, though at a distance that geography made inevitable. She has spoken warmly of him, his steadiness, his work ethic, the way he modeled what it looked like to keep showing up for a craft, without demanding the world reward you for it. John Aniston continued acting into his 90s. Jennifer shared a photo with him in his final year, publicly expressing what she rarely expressed: uncomplicated love. She attended the High School of Music and Art in New York, where a drama teacher named Anthony Aberson recognized something in her and encouraged her to pursue acting seriously. That mentorship mattered. She has credited him in interviews. It is one of the few moments in her early story where the right person showed up at the right time and said the right thing. The years after that were hard in the ordinary way that early acting careers are hard. A string of failed pilots, small parts, the industry's particular brand of rejection, which is not a single door slamming, but 100 small indignities accumulating. She waited tables. She worked as a telemarketer. She kept going. And then, in 1994, she got Friends. It is nearly impossible now to overstate what Friends became. Not just a hit show, but a cultural institution, a shared language, a decade-long presence in the living rooms of people all over the world. Jennifer played Rachel Green, spoiled, funny, gradually becoming capable, eventually becoming someone. The character's arc was a kind of education in growth, and Jennifer's performance made it feel earned rather than scripted. Her co-stars became her closest relationships for a decade. Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, David Schwimmer. 6 people in an unusual crucible, famous together, negotiating together, bound by something that was professionally calculated and also, by all accounts, genuinely warm. When they negotiated as a unit for equal pay, it was Courtney and Jennifer who reportedly led those conversations. The solidarity was real. It was also strategic. The result? $1 million per episode each by the final seasons changed what television actors believed was possible. Courtney Cox has remained one of Jennifer's closest friends across decades. That friendship has absorbed separations, different careers, different private lives, and the strange gravity of shared nostalgia that Friends exerts on everyone who was part of it. When Matthew Perry died in 2023, Jennifer's response, measured, genuine, reflective, was that of someone who had known him when they were both becoming something, and who grieved not only the person, but the specific version of life they had shared. She said, "He made her laugh like few people could." That is a small thing to say publicly. It is also, when you think about what she was actually describing, not small at all. During the Friends years, she met Brad Pitt. They married in 2000. The wedding was covered as a cultural event. The marriage was treated by the press as a fairy tale. They were beautiful, successful, photogenic people, and the world projected onto them an enormous amount of fantasy. When that marriage ended in 2005, following the production of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and the public emergence of Brad Pitt's relationship with Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Aniston became something she had not chosen to become, a symbol of female suffering. The narrative that followed her was relentless and in many ways cruel. Tabloid covers, speculation about her fertility, her grief, her choices. The language used was often patronizing. Poor Jennifer, abandoned Jennifer, not yet a mother Jennifer. She was reduced, in popular press, to a wound rather than a person. And she has spoken about this, carefully, over years, in ways that make clear the damage was real, and also that she refused to perform the victimhood the story required. She said in a 2015 essay in the Huffington Post, published under her name, that she was not defined by whether she had a child, that she was complete. That the cultural obsession with women's bodies and choices was dehumanizing. It was direct, it was long overdue, and it landed because it came from someone who had been on the receiving end of that particular cultural appetite for a long time. Her friendship with Sheryl Crow, with Chelsea Handler, with Reese Witherspoon, these are not incidental. Each of those relationships has been sustained across years and across very different life circumstances. Jennifer has said that she prizes loyalty above almost everything. That value appears to come from somewhere specific, from a childhood where the ground shifted, from a marriage that became public spectacle, from an industry that regularly renegotiates what you are worth. The films after Friends were uneven. There were commercial hits, Marley and Me, We're the Millers, Horrible Bosses. There were critical disappointments. There were romantic comedies that worked because she could do what she does better than most people do it. Make charm feel like honesty. And there were films, Cake in 2014, where she stripped away everything the industry had placed on top of her and played someone in genuine pain. The performance earned her a Golden Globe nomination. It earned her a different kind of attention, and it reminded anyone who had written her off as simply charming that she had been doing more than that all along. Her second marriage to Justin Theroux began in 2015 and ended in 2017. The announcement was quiet. The divorce was handled publicly with restraint. She has not litigated that relationship in interviews. That silence has been its own kind of statement. She returned to television in 2019 with The Morning Show on Apple TV+, a drama about the machinery of television news and the cost it extracts from the people inside it. The show was ambitious. Her performance as a morning anchor, managing the fallout of a colleague's misconduct scandal, managing her own complicity and her own image, was complex and controlled. It was also, in ways that were not subtle, a meditation on exactly what she had spent decades navigating. The gap between the person and the performance. The cost of being watched. The question of who you are when the cameras are always on. Reese Witherspoon, her co-star on that show, has been in her orbit for years. Their collaboration on The Morning Show produced some of Jennifer's strongest recent work. The dynamic between them, two women who understood the specific pressures of being commercially successful and underestimated at the same time, gave the show an edge that pure drama might not have found alone. Then came the Friends reunion in 2021. HBO Max. All six of them back on the original set. Jennifer has said the experience was emotionally overwhelming in ways she had not expected. She was not performing Rachel. She was simply herself, sitting in a room with people who had been present for one of the most formative periods of her life. Millions of people watched. The emotion was unscripted, or as unscripted as anything in her life ever is. The death of her father, John Aniston, in November 2022 at 91, was something she addressed publicly with unusual openness. She posted a photograph and wrote that he was one of the most beautiful humans she had ever known. For someone who guards private grief carefully, that openness felt like a choice made from a real place, not for the audience, but in spite of it. What remains, looking at her now, is someone who has been in the public eye for 30 years without fully surrendering to what that eye demands. She has not given the press the breakdown. She has not performed the redemption arc. She has not resolved the narrative tidily. She has kept working. She has kept choosing, as much as anyone in her position can, the relationships she trusts and the roles that interest her. The symbol, Rachel, the haircut, the tabloid cover, will probably outlast the work in popular memory, which is the specific injustice that follows women in her position. But the work is there. The morning show is there. Cake is there. The negotiation at the Friends table is there. The essay about bodily autonomy is there. The 30-year friendship with Courtney Cox is there. She is not a legend sealed behind glass. She is a working actor with a complicated relationship to her own image, still making choices, still navigating the particular pressure of being famous in a way that demands you be a feeling rather than a person. What she has done, consistently and without much fanfare, is refuse to be only that.